What's good, party people? This is According to Woods, and I have the honor and privilege of talking to one of the major domos of World Series of Jiu Jitsu. He's a black belt in Jiu Jitsu. He's the one, the only Jason Bukich. Jason, what's going on, bro?
This is cool. I loved your intro there. That was awesome. That
Thank
was
you.
really cool. So, just out of curiosity, are we like when you say we're live? Where are we live on?
We are live on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I had no idea that was even possible.
Yeah, neither did I before, I'd say, late June. I mean, I knew it was possible because the way that we know each other is from Gym Crashers. Shout out to Robert and Dondo and Joey the Bull, right? So I knew Robert was kind of working behind the scenes, but I was more in front of the camera and what have you, and didn't like to edit and everything like that. So I kind of knew it was possible, but like the first 100 podcasts that I did in According to Woods realm was done on my phone. It's that easy through StreamYard.
Well, now I know. I learned something new. That's fantastic.
But that's, what are they, the old adage of the wrinkle in the brain, right? You get, one new vestige of knowledge, you get one more wrinkle in the brain, and hopefully it's a nice, concise, precise, optimal situation with the neurological.
I thought I didn't want any more wrinkles, but apparently I do.
Well, the brain. I mean, you pretty well. You're all of what, 32, right?
No, I'm 40.
Wow.
Uh-huh.
See?
I'm an old man.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm rocking 36 and a bit more accomplished, man. Black belt, whatever. I'm still a no stripe white belt, in many forms. Gi, no gi. I'm at the same place, right? But then, inactivity. That's it. But, this career, in terms of holding the mic and doing the interviews and everything kind of progressed where at the same time where, I might have had an injury in jiu-jitsu and what have you. So it was a kind of nice transition.
Into what you're doing now?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, I mean, how did the journey begin for you? Obviously, I mean, for many jiu-jitsu practitioners, black belt is, they say like the hardest thing is to keep on going after you get your blue belt because that's usually the largest drop-off point, across the board, right? So, but I mean, the beginning, even before blue belt, way before black belt, how did the journey begin for you?
My journey in martial arts began with Bruce Lee movies when I was young enough to remember. My mom said that that's all I wanted to watch. I didn't want to do anything else. I just wanted to watch Bruce Lee movies, and I would stand in front of the TV and try to pretend I was Bruce Lee. And that was probably the first up until I was, let's say, 5 or 6. And when I was 5 or 6, I begged and pleaded and finally got my parents to take me to a karate class. And I did Kempo karate for, I don't know, probably 4 or 5 years. And then we moved, and then I started to do Taekwondo. I did Taekwondo for like maybe 8 or 9 years. And then I had a knee injury that took me out for a while. And then once I recovered from my knee injury, I was probably I think I was about 17. And my friend who had been doing jiu-jitsu for a couple years, we watched the UFC at my house, and he after the UFC, he said, let's go back to my gym and train. So, and I had done jiu-jitsu. Actually, I take that back. I was probably 19 at this point. I had done jiu-jitsu a little bit in a friend's garage. Shout out to Sammy Jacobs. I had done probably a year of jiu-jitsu once a week in his garage at this point. But I didn't have any exposure. And there was like a local MMA school that I had been to a few times, but I didn't quite feel the vibe. Like I came from a traditional martial arts background, and I think I felt a little what's the word?
Displaced?
Afraid? Maybe afraid.
Okay.
Like if I'm being honest, like that. I'll give you a perfect example. I went to Marco Huas had a school. I'm sure you know who Marco Huas is.
Yes.
He had a school very close to my house, and I was 19. I was just out of high school, and I went to the gym to train a few times, and I liked it. I loved it. Babalu Sobral was teaching at that time. Marco and Babalu were the teachers. So I went to the class probably 3 times. 19 years old, like I said, I'd done maybe a year of jiu-jitsu of once a week in my friend's garage, and then all the other traditional martial arts. And we went, and Marco had a spar. This is probably on my third or fourth class there. Marco had a spar, and he put me with Justin Levens. I don't know if you know who Justin Levens was.
Yes.
Yeah. So Justin was probably 2 or 3 years older than me at the time, but the guy was just out for blood.
Yeah.
And I think we had done a little bit of grappling before that, and I might have tapped him or something, or given him a hard time. So he was just literally trying to knock my head off during the sparring.
Mm-hmm.
And I literally felt like I was fighting for my life at that point. And I kept just jumping and pulling guard because, like, I had no, my stand up skills. I didn't know at that time, but we're not prepared for that. The guy, literally just trying to kill me. I was not used to that kind of thing. I'd been in a couple street fights, but I never faced a guy of that kind of skill and intensity as Justin Levens brought on.
Mm-hmm.
So I just kept pulling guard and trying to survive the round and just praying that I wouldn't get hurt. And Marco was like, "Stand up, no guard pull, no guard pull." I don't know, he's gonna kill me. What am I gonna do? So I didn't go back really after that. Excuse me, my wife brought me tea. Just a second.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hey, thank you, my love. Thank you. So Chris Brennan had another school down like maybe a couple miles away. Those are the two main schools in my area at the time, Marco and Chris. And Chris's guys, when I was younger, they were kind of like they were the Cobra Kai guys.
Yeah,
if you know what I mean. They were kind of like the Cobra Kai. So I was a little intimidated by them. Like I heard stories about them beating everybody up on the street. Not that they were out for blood, but Jeremy Williams, who was, don't fight with that guy. He's crazy. And I was like, okay, I'll stay away. So, but one of my friends, Rami, trained at Chris's gym. So after the night at the UFC going back, he said, "Hey, let's go back and train at my gym." But this was not training class. Rami just so happened to have a key to Chris's gym. Wow. So we went back to Chris's, and Rami I was probably 195, 6'2", with the traditional martial arts and a year of the garage jiu-jitsu. And Rami said, let's roll, let's fight. And I thought I was gonna kick his ass because he was like 155. Dude, he fucked me up. Pardon my French. He probably tapped me in 5 times in 5 minutes, literally. Just take me down, tap me, take me down, tap me, take me down. And from that day, I said, okay, I want to learn this. I dedicated myself to this. I'm just gonna learn jiu-jitsu, and I wanted to learn it so that I could beat it, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I didn't want to learn it because I loved it. I wanted to learn it because I still thought that traditional martial arts was like the way, and I wanted to learn jiu-jitsu so that I could beat jiu-jitsu. But then over time, I just started to fall in love with jiu-jitsu. And and then Rami introduced me to Jeremy, who ended up being like the coolest guy I've ever met, one of the nicest guys I've ever met. I wouldn't want to be on his bad side, but and Jeremy ended up becoming my teacher. And so the things that you fear, you really have to face them because they end up becoming some of the best things that you've ever done. So I feared training with Chris Brennan's guys, and I did it, and it was the best thing I've ever done. So, and it ended up opening so many doors for my life and so many positive things that came from that. So, if you fear getting on the mat, this is just to anyone who might be watching. If you're interested in jiu-jitsu, but you feel apprehensive or you feel intimidated, I promise you, I had been in your shoes, and if you just do it and swallow your pride and get chapped out, get choked out, get beaten up for the first couple months or first few months or first year, you're gonna fall in love with it, and it will become a part of you, and you won't be able to stop. Once I got hooked, I didn't care about belts. I wasn't there to learn belt levels. So you asked me about stopping at blue belt or something. That was never even a question for me. Wow. It was just a matter of how many times a day can I train without like falling apart, So when you're 20, you just want to train. You just want to get out there and train. You could do for hours and hours a day, but I just love it. So stopping was never something that I considered, except for the time that I had an injury, like I mentioned before.
Right. Well, it's funny because like there's an ethos, going around today. All the kids are saying it, positive vibes only. But sometimes, wanting to get the best of a motherfucker, like that could be the amazing momentum shift that you don't know that your life needs at that fucking moment.
What explain? Go into more. I'm curious what you mean by that.
Yeah, absolutely. Because like, so in jiu-jitsu, right? I mean, I remember when I first started, my instructor Matt Baker, who's a John Jock black belt, his wife Jill, John Jock Machado black belt as well. But he was like, I was getting really frustrated, and he was just like, you have to be comfortable in uncomfortable situations, right?
Yes.
So
Right.
sometimes you need that grit. Sometimes you need that nose to the grindstone to kind of push you. You know,
Yeah.
the person that you ask out and rejects you, I'm like, I'll show him, and I'm left weights and whatever. Like sometimes, or the interview that you didn't get. Like, you know, everybody wants to go like positive vibe, only sunshines and rainbows, but sometimes to get the best of a motherfucker, I'll show you, can be an amazing motivation force. At least for
Motivation.
me.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Yes, for sure. And you mentioned to go to the gym and get the girl, or was that what you said? Is that is that
Oh yeah. You
a,
want the
a
girl?
woman? A woman
Yeah.
can be, or love, or I'm not sure if the word is love, but the desire for a woman, and
Mhm.
you can call it, maybe say that there's, if it's, especially if it's, if love is a motivating factor behind that, like
Right.
if you feel that you love this person and you want them, but for some reason you don't have them,
Right.
what can I do to prove
Mhm.
myself to them, right? What for me, that was the strongest motivator, which is why I took my second MMA fight. Otherwise I probably would have never fought again, because I thought, okay, I like this girl, but she doesn't know anything about what I do. How can I impress her? uh and then my friend, Jeremy, at the time, he said, one day in the gym, he just asked me, he's like, hey, I got a call from, I think the organization was called TFA at the time. He's like, I got a call from blah blah blah, they need a 185-pound fighter, do you want to do it? And I was like, I'll do it. And in my head I'm thinking, okay, I'm gonna have her come, I'm gonna impress her, and then I'm gonna
Yes.
get the girl. And I ended up taking the fight. I won the fight, but she didn't even show up to
Oh.
she didn't even show up. But it
Oh,
doesn't. But
man.
it doesn't. But it doesn't matter. She ended up being my wife anyway. But
Hey.
but that motivating factor is, I mean, that's the driving force in a lot of men's lives, right? It's just getting the girl. You got to get the girl. What do I have to do? What to get that girl? You know,
You start reading,
do
listening to
stupid things
songs.
like get into cage fights.
Yeah, get a vacation. I was gonna go like a little bit more docile and listening to music that you wouldn't normally listen to, reading books, whatever. The
Oh, I
rom
love this
coms.
song. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, J-Lo movies. Yeah,
Yeah,
let's
that's
watch
great.
one.
Geely deserved an Oscar.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean that's kind of it. But then you start to find yourself, it, like, if that's the catalyst that kind of, almost like that arcade game where you put the token in and then you try to push the other tokens down and you get the tickets and what have you, right? That is your catalyst that kind of pushes you into a particular direction that you probably wouldn't normally go down, right? And then what happens? You forget about how many tokens drop. Like, you're in it to win it, right? You're firmly entrenched in this
Yes.
new world of jiu-jitsu. Like, you're like, oh man, almost chomping at the bit. There's white belts. Oh my god! Like, yeah, you see the fear in their eyes, the same fear that you had in your eyes, right? And then yes, you might, depending on what type of attitude you hold, you might do the 5 taps in 5 minutes, or you can be like, catch and release, and here's what you're doing wrong, blah blah blah, whatever, and kind of
Yes.
lead them into a path of good intention.
Sure, of course. And that, for me, that came with time and age, because when I was younger, I would just try to smash people, and now I don't smash anybody, so
You know what's
yeah.
funny, and I can't remember who said it, but like somebody said, there's levels to this shit, and it gets echoed almost ad nauseum in any gym, any social media post about fighting or whatever. But like, realistically, I remember the first time, like, I had that like killer instinct. We were at this gym and another affiliate school that was in town. They were out of state, maybe even out of country, maybe like from Canada or someone. And they were like, oh, there was a competition, I believe, in Fresno. We were in Bakersfield, so they had to drive through Bakersfield to get to Fresno. So um, I just remember like wanting to prove myself in a way that I never had before.
Hmm.
And when I was like a no stripe white belt, and then I'm like tapping out like other white belts, then blue belts, and then I'm like, let me see how far I can go with this. And then
Hmm.
like I'm hanging with like some purple belts, even some browns of that other school. I'm like, and then I go like, what the fuck just happened? Like my value creation was just kind of
Hmm.
off because like I just wanted to like like collect necks and cash checks, and there was no checks to be had.
Not much money there for you, huh?
No,
Just notches on your belt.
yeah, absolutely. But that's the thing. So as you kind of finding your life, right? And first off, you know, we say it now, and I think it goes over people's heads. But you trained in traditional martial arts, where the je ne sais quoi of traditional martial arts. You didn't go to other styles or disciplines, let alone schools, right? To kind of advance yourself, right? It was very kind of close knit, close, very traditional, right? And then you go into a grappling, like a grappling discipline rather than a striking one. How
Yeah.
was that? That was like that must have fucked your whole world up, no?
Well, it was just because with Taekwondo and karate, it's you're bowing to the instructor, you're calling
Yes.
everybody yes ma'am, yes sir, or sensei, or this, or some Korean sabumnim, or whatever the terminology was, and you're just like kowtowing
Mhm.
it, that to the MMA gym where you're calling everybody by their first name, and even the instructor you call by the first, like now in jiu-jitsu schools they have this thing where they want to call everybody professor.
Yeah.
That just makes me feel sick. If anybody calls me professor, I just like, oh my god, what the fuck is this, Gilligan's fucking Island, dude? You know what I mean? Stop with that. My name is Jason. So,
Yeah.
but that was a strange transition for me. So I remember Jeremy for the first year, I always call him a sir. He'd be like, stop calling me sir. I'm like, I can't. I'm used to calling you. I bow. Stop with that. So, but now when I go to other martial arts schools that are still kind of traditional, I sometimes forget the etiquette, and that's not good either. Because I
Mhm.
think there is something to be respected about that. So I I kind of like being in both worlds and being able to go between them, if that makes sense. I like to go to the MMA gym and just get dirty and fight and whatever, and then I like to have to go there and show the so I like both worlds, and I think they both have their value because in the traditional world, I mean, this is another point I don't know if you know, but I had some controversy the other day where I posted a video online about a Tai Chi guy who he was pushing everybody. Or I don't know if you ever have you ever heard of push hands? You know what push hands is?
Yes. Oh yes.
There's a guy named Adam Meisner who has videos on YouTube, and there's a lot of other guys who do this too. But Adam is probably one of the more popular ones. He pushes guys around without doing anything to them, just kind of like he moves his arm and they like hop around and flop. And I I've played push hands with a couple people who I think were probably very high level, and I had a similar feeling where I touch hands with them and they knock me back without really doing much, and they find my center of balance almost immediately. So I know that there's a very high level of skill to push hands, but then there's some things that when I see it, it just looks fake,
Hmm.
right? So I think that the nice thing about the MMA world is that there's nothing fake about it, right? You
Yes.
can't fake that. And when you get to the traditional martial arts side, if you're too respectful and you're too overly this and that, it becomes almost like a cult,
Yes.
and you start doing things don't that aren't based in reality, right? And you accept things that aren't based in reality, just like out of respect for the teacher. And that's where I think it can become dangerous because even the teacher doesn't even know if what he's doing is real or not. Does
Hmm.
that make sense? And then they start to
Yes.
believe they're into their that their shit doesn't stink. Pardon my French. I'm
Yes. No.
sorry,
Fuck yeah.
but everybody's shit stinks,
Yes.
So, and nobody's perfect. So we have to be able to draw that line of what's real and what's not. And I think that MMA is a nice filter
Yeah.
for that, right? But at the same time, I think there's something still to be learned from all those things. So I don't think they should be entirely thrown out the window either. So
Right.
with the guys who train jiu-jitsu or MMA or weight or whatever, they say, that's all bullshit. It's not. It's not bullshit. There's value to it, but it's not the end all be all. Like, I'm not saying that if I just went and did push hands and never did anything else, I'm probably not going to be able to win a street fight against a skilled fighter, right?
Right.
But if I'm a skilled fighter and I go learn push hands and I practice, it's probably going to make me a better martial artist, and
Right.
it's going to make my skill better. So everything has value. It's just, where do you want to spend your time and how much do you want to devote to certain things?
No, 100%. Well, it's funny because that is actually one of the things that negated me from, like, I grew up a pro wrestling fan in total disclosure, right? So, like, bowing and everything like that. Like, the suplexes were the things that got me, not the enigmatic personalities of a Hulk Hogan Ultimate Warrior. Like a motherfucker getting dumped on his head. Like, I was just like, oh, this is great. Like the Steiner brothers,
You can't fake that.
no, super
Yeah.
great. But so that's what drew me in. So when I would hear of like, oh, my hands are registered as weapons, or like, oh, that one fucking touch and whatever, and I was just like, one of my favorite follows on the socials is Nas 40 gram, where he calls out bullshito, not bushido, bullshito, or McDojo life, because like you're these guys, portly gents, and they're like raw, and fucking 8 guys go flying one way, and it's just like that doesn't work. Or the kind of going down YouTube wormholes and the Tai Chi master, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that's given his life to it. 20 years in solitary, and comes out for this one MMA fight, and he's just bleeding like this, and he just fucking gets mollywopped. I love that because that's what life is. Right? I fucking dig it, man. Just like, if somebody gets wrestle fucked by like an NCAA collegiate wrestler, or a Muay Thai person versus a catch wrestler or jiu-jitsu practitioner, and they just get wrestle fucked. Well, that's what would happen if you're on a bar it's Saturday night and shit gets squirrely. That's just what happens.
Right. Exactly. Yes.
Talking about filters, right? There's no filter there.
Right.
You know right where you stand in the pecking order. And that's what I think. I think a little healthy bit of fear, because I, much like you, first stepping in the mats, like the year that I started jiu-jitsu was the commemoration of Elio Gracie's 100th year of jiu-jitsu. So I had my one and only gi, and I still have it to this day, is the Elio 100, right?
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah. So I was like, and I used to look at the guys that would do, because at the time, the school that I was training at didn't have a no-gi class, right? It was just straight gi. And I was told, like, the way to grapple, and I had done a little jiu-jitsu as a kid, right? So that's a gi-based grappling system. So, but me, I'm like, wrestling, whatever. But if I have to wrestle by putting on a gi, then fuck it. I don't care, right? And there would be a couple stalwarts that would be like, oh, not wearing a gi. And I'd be like, you're so disrespectful. And then getting out of that mindset, and then learning about catch wrestling and sambo. And, there's many ways, in the grappling landscape, there's many ways that the cookie crumbles, so to speak, right? So just because traditional for some, right, in doing the gi and whatever, may not be traditional to others, right? So you always have to be almost cognizant of where you stand, but and not to have like hard stances one way or another. You kind of have to be much like Bruce Lee, like water, and the more water you are, whether it be your mindset, your approach, your physical, like, fucking Hickson Gracie, and doing that gymnastica fucking, breathing techniques. Like, those are the things that will really help your longevity, not just in jiu-jitsu, but in life.
In life, yes.
There are times, and we've all been there, running late for class, and lowest life condition, fuck you, fuck off, and whatever, and then
lowest life condition. Yes, I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah. And then you get to class, and it's an hour, 2 hour 5-minute intervals of literally you dying almost, right? People trying to
Yes.
unceremoniously
Kill you.
separate your limbs from your body. Yeah, just
Yes.
kill you, right?
Choke you within an inch of your life, right?
Right,
Yeah.
absolutely. And with the weirdest things, like, and think about all the social je ne sais quoi. Like, I'm not gonna have somebody's ass in my face. The hell if they're gonna spit in my mouth, or the hell if they're gonna bleed on my forehead, or
Right.
right,
Yes.
or choke me
Yes.
out with their collar. But that
Yes.
shit all happens
Yes. Yes.
every day, every role, and it's just like once you get that, and then you get out of class, and that same person or a different person cuts you off, you're like, whatever.
Right. Right. No, it's so true. And you made a point about operating like at a lower level of like I think what you meant is like a low level of consciousness, right?
Yeah,
Is that I like you're like fuck kind people like I was this is 10 years ago. I was on my way to a yoga class right after I had my neck injury, and I remember like I was like the class was going to start in 5 minutes, and I'm driving fast. I go through the parking lot. I cut this person off, and I drive in the wrong like on the wrong way that you're supposed to go on the parking lot, not supposed to drive. I was doing just like I wasn't even conscious of it, and I get a parking spot that I can quickly get to the class and rush in, and I get there, and the teacher goes, Jason, was that you in the parking lot? I was like, what do you mean? What? She's like, did you cut me off? And I was like, oh, fuck. I said, yeah. She's like, that's so unlike you, like you're so different than that in here. Well, I can't imagine that was you out there. And like, I thought about it, like, God, that really was like, what was I doing? Like, why am I? So I was operating in exactly what you mentioned about that low level of just that primary brain or whatever the lizard brain or whatever you want to
yeah,
call it, right? It's like I gotta get there first, I don't know, and it's so hard, it's so easy to get caught in that.
right,
And jujitsu is the ultimate thing because, like you said, when you leave the class, I never leave jujitsu in a bad mood. I never leave
right.
yoga in a bad mood. I'm always just my endorphins are going. It's so different. And sometimes I even say like, oh, I don't want to train today. I'm tired. It's getting late. I'd rather just But like once I get on the mat or once I do that, I never regret it ever. I'm never like, oh, I can't wait to leave. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So just getting there in a good mood is very hard to do. But once you're there and you're gonna enjoy it no matter what. It's fun.
which is wild because it's so paradoxical, right? Like you're cutting people off to get to a yoga class,
Right.
right?
Yes. Exactly. Yes. And of course, the one person I cut off was a teacher. I didn't even realize it. Was that you who cut me off? Oh my God.
Oh shit!
I mean, it's like don't shit where you eat.
Right?
So it's just so stupid. But like it was such a childish thing to do. But I wasn't even aware of it at the time until she brought it to my attention. But it's good to have people bring like to put you in your place, and
Yeah,
she did it in a good way. And I'm sure I still do stuff like that. And I don't even realize it. But it's good to be aware that when you are in that state of mind that you just need to just relax. Okay, so what? I'm going to be 2 minutes late, better than pissing off a bunch of people, and being
right.
a dirk or dick. So I'd rather be late and apologize for it.
Well, I mean that'll actually be a catalyst for something that might also happen in class. Like maybe if I cut the teacher off, well, maybe when I fart in class, that wouldn't be so bad. Right? Deflect one
I,
for the other.
I've never farted in a yoga class.
Yeah, exactly. There's no one ever. But that's the thing, and it's wild. So and you know that's one thing that I want to touch on. Like your practicing of yoga, did that come by way of jujitsu and the injuries, or just a way of self preservation? Like how did
um,
yoga come
yeah,
in?
at that time, I think I had a little bit of an interest in it, but I never had really time to commit to it. I was teaching jujitsu full time, and I was training, and I just I never really had the chance to devote time to it. But then when I hurt my neck in 2010, and I couldn't do jujitsu, my left side of my left arm was like partially paralyzed. I couldn't lift it up. It was pretty bad. I had a severe herniated disc, and it was just the nerves on my left side of my arm were not very were not firing perfectly. But so I spent so that I went and started to do yoga. I found a teacher that I liked, and I did for the entire year of 2010. I just did yoga like at least once a day, sometimes twice a day, and it I healed. I healed. I still haven't. My neck bothers me once in a while, but but it's not. It doesn't really bother me, but it's not 100%. But I function fine. I have strength and everything's normal. But there was a period of time where I thought I might not ever be able to do jujitsu again. So that was kind of unnerving to say the least.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which I mean, as somebody that's dealt with like a severe neck injury, like what do you think about like the inclusions of like stem cells and all of that
We
jazz?
didn't have that back then.
Right.
Now I probably would have done it back then if I had the opportunity. Yeah, I haven't ever tried that now. Have you ever tried that before?
I'm kind of on the fence, but I don't feel like I have anything so severe that I would need that soon.
Exactly. I'm that way too. Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So if I've in this same instance, if like there's atrophy in a particular limb or whatever, then yeah, I'm doing it, and probably hopefully I have some kind of indicating markers that hey, this could get dire before it gets dire, and I use a stem cells or an inversion table if it's a neck type deal or shorter.
Yes.
I have a friend. A show. I don't think it's out of school, but he's a fighter, Shohei Yamamoto. He got taken down at a fight in Coachella a couple years back, and it was believed, and even in Tapology, it says like he had a shoulder injury, but it's happening with his neck, and it's just like it's weird. The whole neurological system, the your I don't know, like it's just weird how everything is interconnected, and if one is off, it's like everything else kind of follows suit.
It's like the light switch shut off.
Yeah.
That the nerve was pinched in my neck,
Wow.
and I think between C5 and C6, if I'm not mistaken, and or C6 and C7, I can't remember, but it was like it's like shutting the light switch off. So there's nothing firing to those nerves. So like I couldn't I could move my fingers, but my anterior deltoid wouldn't fire. So I couldn't lift my arm. It was so interesting. Like it was kind of a scary time. I
Yeah.
wasn't sure if I was ever going to be able to, oh my God. But I got some steroid injections.
Hmm.
That seemed to help a little bit, I think. And then just doing yoga every day for that year. The function of my arm came back pretty quickly. Like just being able to lift it came back within maybe a month. But the ability, I couldn't lift anything with any weight for like 6 months. Like lifting a glass of water I couldn't do that. So that was pretty crazy. But that was also time that I said, okay, I need to learn something else, because if I can't teach jujitsu, that was my livelihood. I was teaching jujitsu at the time. If I can't teach, so I went to study acupuncture I went to acupuncture school and studied that, and then I started teaching. Once I healed, after the year I was able to start teaching and training again. I haven't really competed much since then. I don't want to risk it. It's like, what's the point,
Yeah.
Yeah, but I had my competition. I enjoyed it, but like I don't have that desire. But now with the World Series, I like to open the door for the younger generation to to give them a chance to have some fun and make some money. That's the goal of that.
No, 1,000%. I mean, I think there's no better segue than that. Obviously, we're kind of talking off air. People will pay hundreds of dollars, risk life and limb for essentially a $3 medal, right?
Yes, right.
A lot of times, right? But
Yes.
I mean, the World Series of Jiu-Jitsu offers something completely different. A monetary compensation for the aches and pains theoretically. So tell us more about the formation of it.
Well, as I mentioned to you earlier, so the idea for the World Series came to me when my close friend from college, we had started playing poker together, and we were very competitive with each other when we would play. But uh, there kind of came a point in life where I had to make a decision, and I loved jujitsu so much, so I stayed with jujitsu, and he stayed with poker. And then this is like in 2004 during this time. So he'd been playing successfully, been playing poker. He's still a professional poker player now, but uh, he this was I think 2017. He won a bracelet in one of the World Series of poker events. And that morning, I remember thinking, like, man, I wish that I had a chance to do that with jujitsu. And I was thinking, and then that's the morning that it came to me, like, I looked it up. I saw the domain available, the World Series of Jiu-Jitsu. It doesn't exist. I was like, well, it should exist. Why not? Why not just combine the concept with poker where you put your money into the prize pool, but instead of playing cards, we're going to do Jiu-Jitsu and see who wins. So that was the idea that came to me that morning, and I just followed through with it. And now here we are. So the idea is that the concept is you put your money into a prize pool, and the best man of the day is going to take the money home. That's pretty much how it works. So rather than like a traditional tournament where you pay an entry fee and the owner of the tournament keeps 100% of the money, that's how all the other ones work. We're going to give you the majority of your money to one of the winners. So we don't make as much money as the other guys, but I have a lot more fun probably.
No, 100%. And that's from being a competitor, right? And then now running an organization. This is another testing of limits that happens to you. Now you're a promoter versus a competitor. There's a whole Pandora's box of things that you might have not anticipated for, or
right. And I know there's limitations that I have too, right? Because there are some guys who would be great promoters, right? Mm-hmm. I'm not. I'm really just a competitor who loves jiu-jitsu, who wants to give this. But that mindset that some guy who would be an excellent promoter would probably do much better than me. I should probably even be working with somebody who's really good at that kind of stuff, because like I don't care that there's not. In fact, I don't even want there to be ring girls and stuff. Just like stuff like that might in the event, like flashy lights or like all these kind of things. Like, to me, that's just bullshit. But a lot of people like that kind of stuff. So I probably should delve into that more, that make the show more like more flashy, but like to me, it's just, I just want to see good jiu-jitsu and see some guys make money. I don't really, all the other stuff, the bells and whistles, that doesn't really interest me. But to some people, that's half of it, the entertainment aspect, right? So maybe I'm glad we're having this conversation, because it's making me think. Like, maybe I do need to add more of another dynamic to it to make it more interesting.
Well, I think okay, in pro wrestling, there was this kind of deal where you had Vince McMahon, billions of dollars, and then the owners of the Jacksonville Jaguars and the Fulham FC Football Club in England. Well, the son of this deal, he has, maybe $500 million at his disposal, and he decides to start up a wrestling company, right? And there's two big companies with billions of dollars and what have you. And then this other company, the NWA, the National Wrestling Alliance, that literally has lineages from the turn of the century where people were cash wrestling, right? George, Carl Gotch, George Hackenschmidt, those days, right? And they just came in and were like, hey, the period for this promotion where it was the most vital was in the 70s and 80s. Let's bring back some of those 70s and 80s aesthetics where the commentators, dressed in the jackets with the logo of the promotion they were working for, the Bob Barker type mics, and you could stand out without the bells and whistles if you stay true to your essence. So, like, if you feel the need to go that route, of course, that route will always be there. But then when so many others are doing those things, right? If people wanted to compete in those competitions, and there's nothing wrong with it, have the ring girls, have it in a cage, whatever. Again, like the different optics of what the concept of combat sports jiu-jitsu is, or what a competition is, right? And then people were like, that's all cool, but resources are getting spent on ring girls and cages and fancy productions, and how much of that is trickling down to the fighter?
Right, right, exactly. Right. And like I don't give a I don't like the ring girl. I think it cheapens the martial art,
Right.
if I'm being honest. So that's something I would never have at an event. It wouldn't any kind of event I was promoting. Plus I think it's kind of degrading. Like honestly, like
Yeah.
do we really need this? I understand that it. Of course, when I watched the UFC, yeah, they're beautiful girls. I understand it. It's just it attracts our primal instincts, right?
Right.
You know, but at the same time, I think it cheapens the martial art. So and it cheapens whatever is being displayed. You know, if it's ballet, you don't want to have ring girls
Right.
act two, and
Absolutely.
I'm prancing around in high heels. It's stupid,
Yeah.
you know. So I think you could have a cool show without
Hmm.
having stuff like that. You don't need that to make a cool martial arts show. One thing I would like to have is taiko drums. I love taiko
Yeah.
drums, and I think it sets a cool tone for the event. So
Yeah.
that's one thing I think I might start working on and preparing like a cool event that maybe have that in between rounds or something, or even during rounds, something like that.
Did Metamoris did that way back
I
in
think
the
they
day? Didn't
did. Yeah,
they?
I
Yeah.
actually never been to a Metamoris event, so I'm not sure, but I have watched them some of the matches, and I think I remember hearing taiko drums in the
Yeah.
background.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, the ticket, by the time we got around to like 3 or 4, the tickets were
Uh-huh.
so inflated. I mean, it became almost like those Supreme logo deal where they release only a couple hundred, right? So like if you release $100, $500 tickets, right? Oh, that's the thing to see in town and whatever,
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Is that
and
what they did?
I know I there was early on in the before I even knew about Metamorphs, because this is when I first started training jujitsu, right?
Mm.
Uh, and I would see like the websites and maybe not a sellout and whatever, and $20, $40 tickets and whatever, and then it got to a point that like oh I like we. A bunch of my friends that were that I was training with, they were like, "We're gonna drive from Bakersfield to LA, Metamoris, and whatever," and it's like a $300 ticket, and I'm like, no,
Mm.
I can't. No,
Mm.
it's like a wife and kids and all that
Right.
jazz. Like I can't. No, I can't.
So what would you have paid to go out of curiosity? Like what is a reasonable price?
I don't know. So it's wild in terms of the optics of jujitsu, right? Because like you almost have to go. What is the goal, right? Are we presenting a martial arts? Because you don't need, if you're doing that, you don't need the bells and whistles, right? You
Hmm.
don't need the sizzle on the steak, right? But
Right.
if you're basically coming at it from an entertainment, aspect of it and optic of it, you do need those things, or there is a need that will kind of be insatiable in you to want to provide those things, right? So I think it's it. But one thing that I see just kind of outside looking in, and again, no stripe white belt, so jiu-jitsu Twitter, please don't get mad at me, right? Like, but the fact of the matter is, like, it's jiu-jitsu heads, almost like the Grateful Dead, that they had the dead heads, where you're going to you go around to the IBJJF tournaments or Naga tournaments, and you're going to see some of the same gyms, same people, whatever, but you're not going to get a spectator crowd. You're not going to
Right.
get people outside of the jiu-jitsu community
Yes.
involved in what you're. It's not going to be as sexy to somebody that is buying a $90 UFC pay-per-view, just whatever, to
R-
have beer and
right.
chicken wings with the friends.
Yes. So so for example, like you mentioned the IBJJF, they're the way they do it, like you said, if you're not a family member of the person who's competing, or you're not an active competitor yourself, it's not interesting.
Hmm.
If I go there, I'm bored. I can't
Yeah.
stand. I can't stand going to those places. It's just please get me out of here. So, and then there's also Fight to Win, which is I forget the guy's name who runs it,
Seth
but
Daniels.
what is his name?
Seth Daniels.
Yeah, Seth Daniels. Yeah, and he has a cool way of doing it, but he has alcohol. He sells alcohol,
Right.
and then that's one thing that I also would like probably not to do. I don't know. I don't want a bunch of like drunk people screaming in the crowd, you know. But at the same time, it's fun. I understand.
Right.
Like I have been to one of those events, and yeah, it was entertaining. So he does a good job, actually. I think. So he kind of put jiu-jitsu on a different. So you go to. It's not just going to like IBJJF where it's very dry and boring, and you know you're sitting in the bleachers or something like that. His is more entertainment value. So I think something in between that, but maybe more. Maybe Metamoris was the right way to do it. Like now that
Yeah.
I'm thinking about it. I haven't been to a Metamoris event, so I don't know 100% what it felt like. Uh, but I think I don't. Were they serving alcohol? Was there really
I don't
loud
know about
music?
the alcohol deal, but I know that there were non-jiu-jitsu celebrities, and that might be just the Halleck Gracie tie-in or
Uh
what
huh.
have
Uh
you.
huh. Uh huh.
But like it wasn't out of the realm of possibility that a Keanu Reeves would be backstage or in the crowd or whatever.
Oh
And that,
wow, interesting.
yeah,
Yeah.
so there's that, and like I said, that's one of the reasons why like I like going to shows is the concept, right? Let's say if it's jujitsu, this is the concept, how the promoter sees it, how the fighters see it, how the photographers see it, right? Because
Yes.
like some of the same photographers that do IBJJF, they might have a little bit more leeway to do, a fight to win or World Series of Jiu-Jitsu because like there isn't so rigid, there's a full you know, speaking of fight to win, right? It's just you. There's no other competitions happening at the time other than the one that is being had. So you
Yeah.
get all the bells
Right.
and whistles and everything, and the ultimate attention is that. Versus at the IBJJF, let's say if you're a photographer, right,
Yes.
and you're only positioned on mat one, and there's these other fights that are happening, and you have
Yeah.
no control of where you are positioned. That is the
Yes.
political deal, and
Right.
also in the political deal where like some I heard, I don't know if this is true or not, but IBJJF doesn't recognize Eric Paulson's black belt. This is a guy that literally went everywhere and did everything and went badass with it, and you're not going to recognize that. What the hell is traditional? What tradition are you fucking talking
What a
about?
crock of shit. And they did the same thing to Ensign Eno or Egan Eno no
Yeah,
Ensign Enoue.
it's
Yeah.
an anyway. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. Well, I mean, what a joke. You know,
Yeah,
this guy's done more for jiu-jitsu or for the world than all of you guys put together.
yeah,
So
no, 100%.
yeah,
And it just
yeah.
becomes well. It's you want to get to committees, right? Olympic International Olympic Committee literally is having wrestling on the chopping block. I'm like, then why have a fucking Olympics? Because that is almost a direct descendant of Grecian times. So if
Hmm.
you do that, like, I don't think they were fucking walk running in Rome to please Caesar. I swear to God, like,
They were
and
doing what?
walk running. Have you seen that deal?
Is that an Olympic sport?
It's a fucking Olympic sport where
Walk.
it's
It's
just
called walk running.
yeah, it's walk running. Swear to God.
What?
And
What?
if you run, you're disqualified. And if you walk, you're disqualified. You have to do this gimmick.
I
It's
have to see
wild.
that. I have to see that. That's
I will
gotta be
send you links, bro.
hilarious.
It is weird. And or they do like weird fucking headships. Like, oh, we'll take out wrestling, but as a contingency, you can have your jiu-jitsu as an
Walk,
Olympic event. Like,
walk
what the
running.
fuck? You should have both, right? And it all becomes a deal of ad revenue and what they can sell to NBC or whatever. And here, as much acclaim and history that the Olympics have, the biggest reviews that they got in terms of commentary was Snoop Dogg and Kevin Hart. This last one
For what? What do they do?
for
What do
the
they do?
Olympics.
Snoop Dogg was a commentator on the Olympics.
Snoop
For
Dogg
what
and
event?
Kevin Hart.
For what event?
Everyone. They did a rundown. They did like a 5-minute rundown after everything, and it would be
Really?
like, yeah, and it's just them doing that, And Snoop Dogg was just on Rogan, and he was like, I started doing that for UFC. I was the first commentator with Uriah Faber or Dana White's Contender Series, and
Right.
all of those clips went viral because it's
Right.
Snoop Dogg going like, "Oh shit, that motherfucker's head is in my face, like ass is in my face, dog." Like, oh hell no, But that was the thing that got viral. The Trillers, right? You have celebrities from social media against legitimate fighters, and that's a bigger payday,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
For the fighters than
Yes.
UFC and Top Rank and a lot of other promotions. So
Yes.
again, when you come with history, is it history or is it the money? And
Right.
if it's the money, that's cool, bro. Like Dustin Poirier, that's one of the problems I have with him, right? He's like, oh, I'm a legit martial artist, blah, 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 blah. But they gave him title opportunities. He was like, nah, I'm going to take that 2 fights with Connor. And
Who's
he made
this?
them. Dustin Poirier, the guy who
Oh,
knocked out
yeah,
Conor
yeah,
McGregor.
yeah. What
Yeah,
about him?
he kind of purports himself as this, ardent martial artist, mixed martial artist, this fighter that will fight for nothing.
Huh.
Fought his way all throughout the bayous of Louisiana and what have you, right?
Huh.
And does all that, but when it came to money or title, right? Title basically saying you're at the pinnacle of this mixed martial arts game, right? You're the centerpiece of that division for the number one, the primary organization for MMA in the world, and you take the money fights. So okay, cool. Don't say that you're all the traditional martial artists and everything like that because you took the money. Just say that. Not
Right.
don't shit on Connor for doing the same.
Right. Right. Yeah. But if I was gonna do it, that's what I would be doing too. I don't blame them.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
making money. Yeah,
But
that's
don't.
why I'm there. I'm not
Yeah,
there for any other reason.
my problem. I guess my problem would be it's like again, he's saying like, oh, we're doing this for the health and vitality of the sport. But no, like again, $200 entry fee, $3 medal.
Yeah, yeah.
What are we doing? What are we doing?
It is ridiculous, isn't it?
I think
I,
so.
yeah. So now you've got my brain thinking. I like. I think the production value could be definitely easily upped, but it doesn't have to be too flashy,
Right.
like it could be simple but fun, and maybe having some cool commentators for a live stream. Maybe maybe
Yeah.
if you're up for it, you want to come
Oh,
down, we'll do
fuck
that.
yes, I am.
Yeah, yeah, that'd be cool. So it's got to be entertaining because like I said, personally, I don't care about all that stuff. I just want to watch, like, when I watch the UFC, I'd rather probably just watch it with the sound off. Like, I don't, you know what I mean? I'm not, or if there's a commentator who I really like, I'll listen to it, but I'm not there for all the other stuff. I just want to see the fight. So, but I have to look at it not from, that's just my martial artsy
Right.
uh perspective, but I have to look at it from the average Joe. That's not, they don't really, it has to be more entertaining for them, I think.
Well,
What does it, sorry to interrupt you, I just want to say one thing. What boggles my mind is, like, what is that Olympics, curling, the
yeah,
Olympic sport, and
right.
now you're saying walk running.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how, you're telling me that people would rather watch that than watch wrestling or judo? I don't believe that. I believe that if you put them both side by side, and you have the average person watch, most people are going to watch the wrestling or the judo than the walk, running, or curling. So is it, what is the, why, if their goal is to get viewers and make money on ads like the NBC, like you're talking about, then
Mm-hmm.
why don't they put the more entertaining sport on TV? There's got to be a reason. Are they? What are your thoughts? Do you think just it's true that people would rather watch walk running than watch wrestling?
I think you know what. This is where it's kind of placating to a global audience. It
Yes.
kind of negates it because like cricket, it's not. I'm part Fijian, right? Cricket is big in every British Commonwealth, but it isn't here in the States. Or soccer, or what we call football, right? It's not big here for whatever reason. So maybe, or like the Tour de France, right? There are
Yes.
people that flock from around the world just to catch a glimpse, right? Be in
Right.
the weirdest of the French Alps or whatever, just to get a clip, almost risk their lives if a rider goes the wrong way and the spectator meets a certain death, and you paid thousands of dollars to do that, right? So I think that's kind of the catch-22 of marketing to a global audience. Maybe there is somewhere in, I don't know, war-torn Sarajevo that walk running is the shit, right? No, I mean, honestly, right? Like curling, you fucking go to Alaska and you fucking talk shit about curling. You might
Right.
not have your teeth, sir. Right? So that's So
You're right.
right. So
Yeah.
I think it's that and for whatever reason, the International Olympic committee, which is just a show to get the highest ad revenue. I mean, we're talking like NFL, NBA, MLB, every major sports league is a non-profit. They don't pay any taxes, right? So again, the sanctity of sports almost gets clouded by the almighty dollar. But again, don't go with the traditionals. If you're going to take the money, just say you're taking the money. And for whatever reason, I don't know, there might be an endorsement of the number one walk runner or whatever puts out a shoe line that can make your fucking hip sway better or whatever the fuck, right? Yeah, like it might be a thing. There might be like somewhere in West Africa or South America where that is the shit. That is the equivalent, of a jiu-jitsu or judo, right? To us, different strokes, different folks. My dad always told me, just because you're not into it doesn't mean somebody else is, and that has served me well. Whether it be entertainment taste that, like, what are they doing in the bedroom? Just because you're not into it doesn't mean there isn't a whole subculture. And with the internet, you're tapped in ways like you never would be before. Right?
That's true. Yes.
I'm not judging. Whatever fucking gets you through the day, what have you. It's not my deal. But yeah, I think it's a bit ludicrous, right? Even wrestling as a whole or grappling as a whole on the West Coast, Midwest, they have Midwestern and Eastern Seaboard wrestlers. I would almost equate to some of the Eastern European countries, right? The Kazakhstan, the Russia, and what have you. But for whatever reason, it hasn't taken a hold, or has never taken a hold on the West Coast like it has on the Midwest or the East Coast. And I don't know why that is. But again, those are the same people that, maybe an NBC or ABC or whoever carries the Olympics are trying to market to, that they're trying to make this thing sexy. And for whatever reason, walk running, I'm sorry, I'm shitting on you walk runners, but walk running is a little bit more advantageous and easier to sell than somebody getting dumped on their head in judo.
So you think, if the average person watching at 2:00 in the afternoon is a soccer mom or something like that, they'd rather watch walk running than they would rather watch wrestling. I suppose that's probably true.
I mean, what is more plausible in terms of, let's say, if you needed something in your life to kind of like the family life, the dogs and the kids and whatever, what could you theoretically, no money, could walk out? Do jiu-jitsu, judo, wrestling, or walk running? And I'm not saying that's the trope, but there could be a theory there.
You meaning that it's easier to do, you're saying, or what?
Maybe. But then if that would be that easy, then everybody would be walk running.
Right. Well, is there a lot of money? Because if there is, I'll jump. I'll become a walk runner.
Yeah. Oh fuck. I think
you've convinced me now.
No, don't go the way of the International Olympic Committee. They're treasonous. They want to fucking take out wrestling. But no, and that's the thing, and that's even as a kind of content creator, like a podcaster, right? Like, there are things that do well and don't do well. Anytime I talk about wrestling on this channel, my numbers like triple. Right?
Really?
Yeah.
Is that because the majority of your base is MMA community, or is there something? Was there a different reason for that? What do you think?
You know what? I'm the wrong person to ask, because for me, it's about the story. Like, I can, not that I don't give a shit, but I mean, the things that kind of interest me are, combat sports, and I very much equate, if Sakuraba can beat all the Gracies, then and Sakuraba was trained under Billy Robinson, right?
Yes.
Great catch wrestler. Then, by God, pro wrestling is a combat sport. So, with that all being said, right, I grew up like the combat sports or the son of a musician, so I love music. So those are the things that interest me. So whether I make $1 or not by doing an MMA or jiu-jitsu interview, I kind of don't give a shit, because it's, this might help somebody that is on the fence about doing jiu-jitsu, or that is already in jiu-jitsu and worried about doing a competition, but they're trying to justify it to their significant other. Oh, hell, I'm going to pay $300 for a jiu-jitsu competition and get a $3 medal versus like the World Series of Jiu-Jitsu. And maybe make some.
I never
Some
thought
people,
about that. That's actually, but that's, yeah, you're right. That is a way to justify it, right? Because if you're short on cash and you're like, hey, honey, I want to go do this tournament for $130. She's like, what are you gonna get if you win? Well, pat on the back, maybe.
yeah,
you know. So yeah, no, that makes sense. It is. It does just. It is. There is a justification. You could say, well, if I win, I get $1,000 or whatever. Then maybe she's like, okay, I'll go do it. Yeah, I
mhm,
never thought about that. But
yeah.
that actually is a very. It's another reason to justify spending your time and effort into doing something. So, yeah, I
Well,
like it, and not just to yourself, but to other people as well.
right, absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, and there are going to be those people that, like, let's say they know nothing of what you do, right? And go like, and they might see a bunch of medals hanging on the mantle or whatever, right, in the trophy room of your house and whatever, and then we're like, hey, what's that? Those look cool. Oh, that's a jujitsu, whatever. And then it's a topic of conversation. And that's
Mm.
also one of the reasons why, like, I actually dig Naga, right? Because as a pro wrestling fan, I didn't want to be a fucking Olympian. I didn't want to walk run. I didn't want to fucking bobsled. Even though after Cool Runnings, there was a time, but I lived in California.
You wanted a
Yeah,
bobsled?
hell yeah, dude. Fucking Jamaican bobsled team. I was all in it.
That
Uh,
was great.
and have John Candy as my coach. Like, fuck yes, let's do that. But it's just different strokes, different folks. And like with Naga, right? Like they have belts. That appeals to me more than IBJJF because I get a belt. And for me, I wanted to be a fucking pro wrestler, right? And whether you call it pro wrestling, grappling, submission grappling, whatever, wrestler in my head, right?
Mm.
Billy Robinson and what is it? Kale Sanderson and Elio Gracie should be on the same deal. Obviously,
Mm.
different optics, but should be on the same plane in terms of legendary grapplers. But I think, I don't know, recency bias, kind of mars everything, right? The greatest of all time is greatest of all time today, but it might not be 5 years from now or 5 months from now. Some scandal could befall of somebody, or you get into a bad Twitter war with fucking Gordon Ryan, and you're like, fuck jiu-jitsu. I mean, you never know. Like,
Huh.
you never know what pulls people in. So I think, in essence, kind of going back to our conversation, it's just like whatever your essence is, because of course you're going to, and as we do in this life, theoretically, you grow, right? You essentially are the same person, the same being, but you get attributes, right? Whether it be physical, mental, amorous, what have you, that kind of add on to the presentation, right? But you shouldn't lose your essence, because even what I'm doing now, this is exactly my mom's dream for me. Her father was a broadcaster, the very first broadcaster in our native Fiji, right? So
Really
yeah,
cool.
so she basically molded me because we grew up here. My grandfather was in Fiji, my ta was in Fiji, so it was just like, okay, we're gonna, like, AJ, look at everything that has broadcasting, Murphy Brown, WKRP in Cincinnati, news radio with a Rogan with hair and everything like that, those were my kind of tropes as a kid, right?
Mm.
So in essence, I'm doing very different from my grandfather, because my grandfather was very traditional, trained by the BBC and
Mm.
what have you.
Mm.
I'm doing it in a different way, but also I can't get too full of myself, because even my grandfather that loved the news, I remember once a month my mom sending him a stack of National Enquirers because he loved that shit too.
And he couldn't get it there.
No,
Oh wow, interesting,
National Enquirers is a uniquely American thing.
interesting. Huh. But he wanted it, so she sent it to Fiji.
Yeah, she sent it to
Wow,
Fiji once a
that's.
month.
Did you ever have you been to Fiji?
I've been a couple times.
Is
Yeah,
it is it
87 and
as
92.
incredible as I imagine?
It is, but I mean, I was so young when we were there that I didn't really appreciate it. I was just like, I took my Sega Genesis over there and I couldn't plug it in because of the damn European
Oh,
connections and shit
that's
like that.
good. Thank God. Otherwise you would have wasted your time playing Sega when you could have been on the beach. I'm sure
Yeah,
it's.
well, but then the time that I was on the beach in 92 was in the middle of a fucking hurricane.
Oh wow, really?
Yeah, so it's kind of funny. Like some of the family, they're like, just stay mainland, because like 87 we went and there was a coup, like a
Hmm.
little fucking coup overthrowing the government, right? And then 92, like a devastating hurricane, right?
Hmm.
And that the hurricane in 92, it was wild because we actually, so I don't know if they still do it now, but in some of the beaches in Fiji, we have A houses that are almost like the precursor to tiny houses, but it's just like it's described. It's shaped like an A. Both, and it's a split level. There's a level up top and a level on the bottom, and all it has is like a mosquito coil and a mattress and a
Hmm.
light. That's all you got, right? So we were actually staying in A, and I guess the communal aspect of it is like you rent out the A house, but you have the lay of the land for the facility. So you got a full functioning kitchen, restaurant, I mean restroom, and everything like that. For like $10 US,
Hmm.
right? So you get to sleep, with the waves crashing to kind of lull you to sleep. It was awesome. And
Sounds
then
great.
yeah, then waking up in the morning, I'm like, ah, fuck the shower. Let's just jump into the sea. And we
Hmm.
did it. And the next thing I know, my dad is like fucking almost David Hasselhoff ass and grabbing me with the fucking cable grip almost, right?
Wow.
Because there were literal palm trees that were toppling over. And
Hmm.
my dad was like, fucking kids in the water, let's go to safer ground. So
Hmm.
yeah, my run in Fiji, and then my mom went in 2000, and there was a coup then too. So they're like, "Fucking stay mainland."
Wow. 92, was that in September? Do you remember? Are you
That was it. Couldn't be in September because I had schoolwork. Or it could have been. I want to say because I had schoolwork that I still had to do because it was like a remote precursor to remote learning now.
Hmm.
They gave me a packet of shit to fill out, so it was in the school year. I want to say it was around maybe winter here, but summer there. So probably like October, November, December.
Okay. So, okay. Because there was a hurricane in Hawaii in 92 that was pretty strong, if
Oh
I remember
wow!
correctly. And because I think I had been there and we had just left and we'd missed the storm by like 2 days. I want to say it was around September, but we missed the storm by a few days. Like and then like the hotel that we were at had been like wiped out, and I'm
Yeah,
wondering if it was because I
you
wonder
know
if it
what?
was
It
the
could
same
have been
hurricane.
though. I think it could have been. I mean, I was what 7 at the time, so I mean, you
Hmm.
could be absolutely right.
Hmm.
And usually that's what happens. At some of the kind of ecological disasters that befell in Hawaii, they float over to
To
the
Fiji.
other, yeah, Fiji, Samoa, Tonga, or Solomon
Yeah. Right.
Islands, right?
Right.
But but I think Hawaii is a lot more equipped to handle a typhoon or a hurricane than
Yes.
Fiji is because like
Uh,
you've got the volcanoes and the mountainous ranges. Fiji, it's all flat. So go ahead
hmm.
and run to the other island. That's just like the part of the island that you fucking left, man.
Right. Wow. Yeah, I see what you're saying. You can't get to higher ground.
No, so
Right.
we just it almost reminds me of those little construction workers on Fraggle Rock, like Fijians, and almost like Floridians, right? Where you just know one time of the year your shit is going to be fucked up, and then you just do what you can,
Oh
you know,
my God, it
grab
sounds horrible.
grab a bucket, kind of siphon the fucking water out, and then you go back and party again.
The great reset every year, huh?
Yeah, absolutely.
Hmm, hmm,
Sometimes even twice a year. If
hmm.
we're lucky. Global warming is a thing, apparently.
Yeah. Huh.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, so I guess I mean we talked a lot about the World Series of Jiu Jitsu, and as it stands now, obviously 2020, even into 2021 is a crazy year. But like in terms of what you see for the organization and where it stands in the Jiu Jitsu landscape,
Hmm.
like what is the not to say the end goal because the goals always progress and change, but like what would you like to see happen with it?
I My original intention was that we would have some satellite tournaments in different regions,
Okay.
maybe kind of like ADCC does in a way, but in New York and Florida and maybe more than just ADCC, but and all throughout the year. And at the end of the year, the winners of those tournaments, instead of taking the money on the day of the tournament, we would collect it all into a large prize pool. So the winners, like of the guy in Florida, the guy in New York, the guy in Texas, the guy in Chicago, whatever, would come to compete. If you win that one, you come to compete, and then you get the money that has been pooled together. So basically there'd be small satellite tournaments leading up to the main event at the end of the year. That was my original goal with the World Series.
Mhm.
But what I found is that I tried to do that in the year of 2018, and I gave the guys an option. I said, you can either take this money today, which, like, let's say it was 500 today, or 1,000 today, or you can put your money into the main event and come compete at the end of the year. And every single guy wanted his money that day. Nobody wanted to put their money into the larger prize pool.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it's going to be possible to do what I want to do, and if it is, it's going to take a lot more time to build to that, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
So, but that is my eventual goal. I want to have a large main event at the end of the year, and I want to have small satellites throughout the year that build up to that. That's my goal with the World Series. So first place can be like a minimum 10,000. That's my goal. So if even a blue belt can make 10 grand if he's really good, and then the next year he can come back and try his luck at purple belt. And over time that we'll build the larger. That every winner of every year will have to go to the next level every year until you reach black belt, and then it'll be harder. That's going to be the hardest one to win, obviously.
It's not too dissimilar, and I'm actually going to send you something that is it. So in terms of pro wrestling, that's pre Vince McMahon WWF. That's actually what happened, where there was territories, right? Territories and organization in each region of a promoter, right? And those promoters, right? They'll have their own regional champions, right? They'll have like a Missouri State champion, Ohio State champion, what have you, right? And have their deal. But they all basically recognize a world champion. And that world champion would kind of tour around the loop to kind of bump up business. So I almost feel like you're talking about like a World Series of Jiu Jitsu territory system where you could essentially, I don't want to. I don't want to fucking tell too much. I guess I don't want anybody to nab it. We'll talk off air. But that is, I have a vision of how it could work.
Great. I'm happy to hear it, because it sounds like you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So that's my goal. Is I want to build to the point where every year we have and for different levels too, not just for black belts, but for different levels we have the satellite tournaments build up to a large main event, and that's where the guys are going to make the money. That's the goal. But if you want to get paid out the same day, then we can't get to that. We can't get to that level, So
Right.
but I understand, 500, a bird in the hand. What is it? A bird in the hand is worth two in the bush, right? So I'd
Right.
rather take my 500 now or my 1,000 now than, if I need the money, especially if money's tight for me, then I'd rather just take my money and pay my rent this month than potentially make 10 grand in 6 months from now,
Right.
So maybe we just don't allow them to. Maybe we say, hey, you don't have the choice to take the money today. That's one option to do it too, But I think I have to develop that trust with the competitors in the beginning, because they may say, "Who the hell is this guy? He may just take the money and run, and then never have the main event too." So I have to develop that trust with the competitors that, hey, I'm not just gonna pocket all the money. I promise you, there's gonna be money at the end of this.
Or put your money in. The winner of each territory gets a medal. That medal unlocks the 10,000.
There you go.
We're talking, Jason. No worries. I got you, brother. I got you.
Cool. I
Because
like it.
I love the proliferation of seeing people, improve the scenes that they came into and leave it a little bit better. That's what I love, because, you know, fuck combat sports, like the world, right? The world and our community. We have wife and kids and everything, and we got to raise them in this world and what have you. So, in my estimation, and I could be totally far off, but the more people kind of reaching and achieving their dreams, makes a more wondrous society, right? And a wondrous place where it's not as scary as what you and I came into, or a life without us to our families would be, or our families to us, right? So I want to make sure the World Series of Jiu Jitsu is exactly, in essence, of course, nice, cool attributes added in from time to time or whatever, but in essence, what you decided it was when you saw your buddy win the 250K in the early 2000s. We're gonna get to that.
I appreciate that, and I and thank you. So
Absolutely.
all the more the help, the better.
I got you. I got you. But obviously, all the help, the better. You couldn't be here where you are, where you stand today, without a throng of people who have supported you, both professionally and personally.
Of
So
course.
take as long as you need. Let's get some shout outs out of the way.
Oh man, uh, Bruce Lee, thanks for opening the door of martial arts for me. Uh, my grandfather was a huge inspiration and spent a lot of time with me as a child, and I think that's important. Like, I'm going to veer off here for a second, but
Yes.
for for children to spend time with family and adults, the more time the better, I think, because if you develop peer groups at too young of an age, then your thought becomes limited. I think for children to spend time with adults, it it shapes them at a younger age and opens their mind, and they learn more useful things than they would if they were spending time in a daycare center surrounded by a bunch of other kids. So I was fortunate that my parents worked, but my grandfather spent a lot of time with me and took me places and did things. So rather than spending most of my time with other young children, I usually was spending my free time with him, and I think that played a large important part of my youth and who I am as a person. So, um, you know, for the parents out there, spend as much time with your kids as you can, because that, I think, is extremely important. Um, who else? Jeremy Williams, my jujitsu, my first jujitsu coach. I miss you very, very much, and I hope to see you soon. Not too soon, obviously, but or if you can come back somehow, that'd be great too. Uh, and my my buddy Rami Bukai, who's the guy who introduced me to jiu-jitsu, the guy who tapped me 5 times in 5 minutes, and he's also my business partner in the World Series of Jiu-Jitsu, and he's also my business partner in the Dojo.com, which is another project that I'm working on right now. And he's been very supportive, and my wife. Thank you for our 3 beautiful children. Fourth on the way. So, and
Congratulations.
Adam, thank you. This is awesome. I really enjoyed this.
Well, I think this might be the first of many. We're fleshing out ideas in real time, and man, it's been just to see you, man. Like we haven't seen each other since you did Gym Crashes, like almost like 3 years ago. So
Was it that long?
I
Wow.
think so. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
That went by
So
fast.
yeah, so just good to be able to talk to you and kind of embark in some cool ideas that will benefit.
I can see the sparks in your mind, so
I
I'm
know.
looking forward to hearing what you have to say.
Let's do it. Let's do it. Well, speaking of thank yous, thank you guys for watching us here at According to Woods. And if you haven't already done so, go ahead and like, share, and subscribe to the According to Woods podcast on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, Twitch and Twitter. I mean, Jason, you're subscribed to the podcast, aren't you?
On YouTube?
Yeah, on YouTube.
I am. Yes, I am.
Yeah, so go ahead and be like Jason.
I didn't know there was a Facebook page for this. So I will, now that I am, I will go subscribe to that too.
There you go. Which, I mean, before we get to that, obviously, where people can find more about you, World Series of Jiu Jitsu, and everything that you're doing, where can they find that on the interwebs?
Well, so the World Series of Jiu-Jitsu, you can either go to worldseriesofjiu-jitsu.com, or you can go to the acronym, which is WSOJJ.com. And that's the sites that has all our events and our prize pools, and kind of you'll learn, that's where you can learn most about our events. And for the dojo.com, it's the dojo.com, and it's a martial arts instructional website. I teach on there. We have podcasters, we have instructors from all different martial arts, and it's kind of like YouTube, where you can subscribe to each instructor's channel, but the income that they make from the channel goes directly to them. And yeah, that's it. We just launched it like, I mean, we're still launching it now. So the official launch was like 3 weeks ago, but it's free until January 1st. So if you want to go on there and check out some of our instructors, it's free till January 1st. And we have Sambo, we have Judo, we have Jiu Jitsu, we have Tai Chi, we have a lot of things. So that's gonna up and coming site that's dedicated to martial arts and martial arts content.
That's amazing. I love it. I'm gonna go ahead and subscribe and check it out as well.
You should put your podcast on there. That's what you should do. Yes.
Okay.
Or we could podcast together on there or something like
Yeah,
that.
let's
Yeah.
do it.
Great.
Let's do it. So there's more from Jason Bukich and According to Woods here, folks. So stay tuned. Stay tuned. So go ahead and subscribe to the podcast. Follow everything that Jason is doing. I encourage you to do so. But if you don't believe me or Jason subscribing to this podcast, well, here's Zeta Zhang to help convince you.
Hey, this is Zeta Zhang. Make sure you subscribe to According to Woods YouTube.